Where is it?
Did you just hear that?
I heard it.
Oh! Where are you? It's the email thing, I bet. Oh, that's right. That's why.
Oh, your email tab is open?
That's why.
You
It's
can't, like,
email.
mute site? Or is it the email app?
Quit mail. Sometimes,
Tommy in New Hampshire wants to know why you're dressed for a blizzard.
because I have severe hypothermia, Tommy, because a double switch just happened to me in which I took my son to ski at Bradford, which is near us. So I've had a pledge to not wear anything but shorts, and so I wore this out there. The plan was this. I get my son set up. I did learn a lot about ski poles and stuff and get him set up. I watch him go down the hill a couple times. I then mosey right into the ski lodge. I get set up with a Bloody Mary. I watch him from the ski lodge, and all is good. Did not happen. This was an emergency cluster bleep immediately happened. Bradford ski lodge, no bar. And so
Sorry that happened to
now
you.
I'm with my son, watching my son ski for 3 hours. Can you imagine? So
The horror.
yeah, and the place has no internet. Like, it knocks it down. It's, if you don't know where Bradford is, it's like Haverhill. It's in the middle of a neighborhood. This ski place, and somehow they kill the internet. It's amazing. Nothing. I couldn't call in any emergency ally supplies. I couldn't nothing. So mostly I stood outside and just began to freeze. And it's funny because I had people laughing at me. Two kids laughed at me. They said, "Aren't you cold?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm freezing actually." And they said, "Ah." So now I am. My bones are now cold. It was a good operation there. I just didn't realize. I didn't realize
That you weren't going to be sitting at a bar.
I didn't realize I was going to be
in the ski lodge hot tub.
Well, right, I did. I've only been as an adult. The only time I've been to somewhere that's got a ski hills has been where there's been a lodge. I mean, okay, but fine. There's no lodge. That's fine. So that's what happened to me. I will say one thing. I'm new to this. I have not been really to a ski place. Well, no, I guess we went to Vermont a few years ago, but we didn't. I don't ski, obviously. But the ski milf, hola. This is the elite.
Is this something I should join?
Yeah, I'd be all for it. Do you ski?
I never have, but I could learn how.
I think you'd be okay, actually. Yeah,
I mean, I know how to ice skate.
So I didn't see this.
I can balance myself.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing when you go out, because I'm wearing shorts. Yeah, your legs get cold and like in a cold, like stinging way, of course. But I find you don't lose much heat in the legs. And so that wasn't the big problem. The problem was actually my arms getting cold. That was more.
You weren't in a warm enough coat.
No, so that was. But my arms were covered, but still doesn't. But there you go. So yes. Now move my creepiness to now. Checking out ski milfs at ski lodge. So nobody's safe now. That's what I'm saying. Okay. A couple of things. One, there are no chat messages, which I'm surprised. I was surprised that we had a multitude. A couple times we had like 20 at once, and then sometimes there's none. And I wonder if some of that is the build up to our show, or I was going to say our live show. We're not really having a live show, but our viewing party, and maybe people are like, "Oh wait, should I curb my behavior or act differently?" We'll see. Got to meet Phil, great guy, great guy, very assertive guy. We were asking all sorts of questions. We're going to be having our viewing party at the Crystal Community Center in Wakefield. This guy runs it, named Kevin, is a good guy. He's a Trump guy. He's all about it. Gave us a good deal. It is potluck, so bring food. If you don't, it's not. If
you don't have to make something. You can bring something from a place if you want. You can bring a pizza. You could do whatever you want, or don't bring something. I'm sure plenty of people will bring stuff.
Right.
But yeah, the one big rule is they are giving us a great deal on the price. You can't bring any beverages in there except coffee and tea. You can't bring waters. You can't bring sodas. You can't bring. That has to all be through them. So
yeah. So that's it. As if you're at any other bar or whatever.
Right.
And the prices are kind of bar prices too. So, I mean, you can get a beer for $5 or $6, I think, but you can also get a beer for like $13, depending
Right.
which thing you're going for. I asked specifically about Bloody Marys, and those are $9.
Okay.
You
Good to
can
know.
bring it if you have your own coffee. You can bring your own coffee. In
Coffee and tea you can bring.
exactly, but they're just there's a bartender there. They're trying to make some money, and they did give us a good deal, and even discounted it again. So we're getting it's fantastic a deal. It's a huge room, which I'm thrilled about, and there's a big monitor there. The only thing we've got to do is, and I haven't seen the thread recently, is we've got to make sure that we can plug somebody's computer into that monitor.
Bill's going to bring a computer, or we can obviously bring a computer too.
Yeah, we will too. And I have a little bass amp, an old bass amp that that I'll use for just to say hello and make an announcement or something. Oh, there's going to be some raffles too, so we'll just keep the amp open. Maybe we'll do karaoke. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun day. If you can get there, what is this?
10 to 3.
10 to 3, yeah.
Crystal Community Club. It is accessible by the Wakefield commuter rail stop. It's about a 20-minute walk, or like obviously a really quick Uber from there. So
Yeah, it's essentially it's right off on Route 95.
So very close to there. And I don't know anything else that people need to know. I think that's pretty much everything. But so essentially, we talked about like what the scope of it is. I think Phil came up with the idea initially, right? Wasn't that Phil? Phil came up with the idea?
Yes.
Okay.
And as a way for Burn Barrel, the community, just to get together and say hi and celebrate,
Right.
So that's we wanted to keep an eye on that. But some of the like affiliated people, like I've invited Jerry. I did invite Jerry Callahan. He said he may come. So who knows?
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Scott Brown can't make it, sadly.
Scott Brown can't make it. We've invited Michael Graham may come. It's just for I guess more notable like radio local people. Alice has invited Smurless. He could come. Well, we didn't
Montante's coming.
Mike Montante's coming. If you're the KMS world, I did invite the KMS crew as well. Too. Who knows? I don't think though. I would be shocked if Minahan came, if Kurt came, but the other guys could come. It depends.
But they have it. They have the date and time. So
they got the date and time. And so what we didn't do is, and we probably could have, but since it's a special thank you to you guys, we just didn't make it. Everybody
we're not sending it around to every Republican in the area.
Exactly.
But I mean, like, we are including people who maybe aren't as frequent listeners, aren't chat callers, listen occasionally, that we know or have reached out to us separately, that that you guys don't know their names, but they're fairly frequent listeners who like fit the vibe. So if you have a friend that you want to bring and they fit the vibe of the Burn Barrel and the general party, definitely you can bring them, but we're not like, publishing the invite in the local paper kind of deal. So
right. We're not. Although there's a chance that it could, I did talk to somebody, there's a chance it could get a little bit of media coverage because it is a good local story for a day that's going to need content, a local content, because it's a big national day, the 20th, although there's MLK stuff too. So we'll see. And if somebody, if a local paper, actually, Sardella, right? Obviously he can do what he wants with the thing. Mark, if you want, whatever you want, or leave it alone. No, whatever. Obviously, Mark is first dibs, obviously.
Right, but we would like people to RSVP. That's on the invite, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to come, now that we have a set date and time, we're trying to get a head count by January 9th so the room can be set up properly for us in advance. Let us know what potluck dish you want to bring, things like that. So,
and there will be, I'm working right now and trying to get my hands on a few Burn Barrel t-shirts. There's going to be some kind of raffles for some things as well. Wouldn't mind getting some all-you-can-eat stuff. We'll see. Regardless, we're going to hang out and have a lot of fun. I am really looking forward to this. Like, I look forward to, like, a party.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I think that we're going to have a lot of fun, and I cannot wait.
We're going to have all our kids there. You can bring your kids.
Yeah, bring your kid. Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of kids there.
You
Believe
can consider it educational. They're seeing history as the new president is sworn in.
Absolutely.
Splash in the chat says he wants it to be on the South Shore for his personal benefit, but
I'm not Splash. I'm not a South Shore guy. Where are you in the South Shore? I'm not a South Shore guy. I do have a couple friends in the South Shore. One of my friends, we'll say it's South Shore. He's now in Dorchester, yeah. Well, we did try to. We moved it closer. We moved it close to keeping 95 in mind, rather than up where we are, because we're 30 or 40 miles away, I think.
Right.
About from where the thing is. So we kind of use 95. That said, there are some very good South Shore areas. Like there's Alba in Quincy is a great place. The owner I used to know 10 years ago was a great guy. Don't get me started, man. There's a lot of places in the South Shore that I could go to. But my arch rival has been a South Shore guy. He's really my friend.
Splash is in Nantucket. So.
Oh, the South Shore of Nantucket. Oh. Yeah, I haven't been to Nantucket or the Vineyard since I was 5, I think. So I would happily go there. I hear great things about
His
it.
mainland home is in Weymouth.
Oh, what a beautiful person. Oh, my goodness. Really? Spends his time in Nantucket and Weymouth? What a beautiful person. Yeah, I guarantee you that he's got the trucks come to set up his Christmas lights. That's the money we're talking about. By the way, did you see that I sent you the info for a possible house cleaner? Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
I found this lady on Facebook who lives right around here. She seems to be, in a good way, maybe a little crazy in a fun way.
Okay.
She is raising hell on Facebook, smashing people over the head who are deriding Donald Trump. She is excellent.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and
Splash says his dad's good friends with the owner of Alba, Leo.
Really? There we go. That's great. Yeah, he was great. We used to, for Herald Radio, we used to broadcast from there, and he was great. Leo was great. He seems like a guy who you wouldn't want to stiff on the check. I would not run out without paying at Alba if Leo was there. That was a great place. Alba's where I got a phone call from Michelle McPhee, who was irate and then burst into tears screaming at me because the Herald published her DUI photo. Screaming at me! I ran Herald Radio. Little did she know that I actually was in on the decision because me and the editor were on a train. This was bad. I had some beautiful people stuff happening then. We were on the, what's the fast one called?
The Acela?
We were on the Acela on our way to Manhattan. How beautiful person is that?
For the talkers thing, right?
Yes, for the talkers thing. When Photog got a picture of her in the courtroom, and he's like, I mean, I won't say, I mean, you knew when we got the picture that the picture could be devastating of her after the DUI, where she like did the "you know who I am" thing with the cops, and they were going to run the story, and they certainly, because you can't not run the story because she was former Herald, you can't bury a story, and then she was with Hillary, who's Hillary, the waspy one from the Globe,
Sargent.
Hillary Sargent. Hillary Sargent started like yelling at our photog, and like in like Michelle or something was like, people were like pushing were being unkind, and as soon as the editor heard about that, it was like it was gonna pretty much happen. But it was the kind of thing that was very interesting because the DUI photo was not a good photo to have out in the world, but it was also a great photo to have in a paper. And sometimes you get a DUI, and it's like. I was still. Morgan said he was going to get my DUI shot from Barrie, Vermont, in 1997, and still.
Are there websites online where you can get all?
If there are, Barrie, Vermont will not be one of the early adopters of it. Okay, so I want to talk. So it's funny because, by the way, Steve from Gloucester RSVP'd for this event.
Oh wow!
So it's funny because when we have this event, there are going to be. Oh, you may be able to meet Jim Shattuck, maybe there. But at this event, these are all of our fans and our friends, and this is kind of the same thing, right? Are decent people, and are even the ones, even the Trumpiest of the Burn Barrel fans. They're all good people.
Yeah.
You're allowed to like Trump. You're even allowed to have a hat and this is your son, Cyril. Yes, sir. Hi. Okay, they're diming each other out. So they're all very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
And we have differences of opinion sometimes, or sometimes we're a little bit where we diverge in ideologies, whatever. But they're all fine. And I think about as Mark would call them, the legacy Republicans out there, or traditional conservatives, the old school, the people who 10 years ago would have been considered the keepers of the flame of true conservatism. These are guys who read Hayek, who are John Locke people. They're the first John Locke. These are people who read in the origination of conservatism, etc. These are Reagan fans. These are, including some of the neocons who are my people who I like, obviously. And they've obviously been disenfranchised since Trump.
Yeah.
Or they disenfranchise themselves because they can't stand to be part of it. And there's this habit when you're them of them not being able to countenance any MAGA person getting anything right.
Right.
They have too much disdain. It's like no MAGA person get it right. So the Jonah Goldberg the other day was talking about the deep state and what MAGA thinks of the deep state, and he's mad because like these idiots. There's no deep state. It's no deep state. Like and you're going to hear this piece of audio. This is him talking about the MAGA people and their deep state. And there's for some reason, and I want you. This is really about the mindset of people like Jonah, who I like and I also listen to. These conservatives who still just can't give MAGA an inch. They can't give them an inch. Even when MAGA is right about something, they're going to say MAGA uses napkins when it's obviously a serviette, and it shouldn't matter,
Right?
Because it's the same thing, really. But they're ticked off so that they do this. This is Jonah talking about the deep state or the rights, the new Trump rights vision of the deep state.
The deep state implies, and you've heard me talk about this so much, I'll be very brief. The deep state implies a coherent ideological agenda among committed and highly competent people across agencies, across bureaucracies.
Okay, we've got to do a podcast, bro, okay?
There's 2 chargers in my room next to my bed. You can borrow one.
Okay. Let me start that again. So that was Cyril Shattuck making his today's podcast debut.
The deep state implies, and you've heard me talk about this so much, I'll be very brief. The deep state implies a coherent ideological agenda among committed and highly competent people across agencies, across bureaucracies, all committed with a sort of esprit de corps and a sense of urgency to achieve their agenda and undermine a political leader that they disagree with, right? They're Hydra or Spectre from the James Bond movies or Chaos from Get Smart. And
this is, by the way, all condescending.
Yeah.
There's Spectre, the Hydra. This is that's how they think of the deep state.
That just doesn't exist. In some of my LA Times column, I pointed out, there's this big story that I think didn't get nearly the attention it deserved, precisely because it runs right counter to the sort of, the federalist, American greatness crowds, theories of deep state.
This is all said with dripping venom and disdain for them, federalist and American greatness crowd
stuff, which is that, the Wall Street Journal found that among intelligence agencies, there was a heated debate, both among and within, among experts on the sources of COVID in the pandemic. And the FBI was the most confident that it was in fact a lab leak and not from the wet market thing. And the other agencies and political leaders in the Biden White House kept the FBI's finding from reaching the president's ear. the reason why I think this didn't get the attention it deserved is that because, you know, we've been told that the FBI is the living, breathing heart of the deep state. And yet the FBI's position was much more in accord with the people who like to bitch about the deep state, you know? Anyway, that episode and that dynamic gets much closer to what the reality is, which is that...
Okay, so here's the reality. He said deep state, it's all nonsense. Blah, 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 blah. Here's the reality.
In various bureaucracies, there are power centers, there are operators, there are people with agendas, there are interagency rivalries, there are intra-agency rivalries that play themselves out, and they sometimes they're inconvenient to politicians, right? I mean, the bureaucracy has been the bureaucracy at the CIA has been screwing with presidents for a very, very long time. This is an ancient thing. Happens at the FDA too. It happens at the EPA. But the reason why it's not the deep state is because the guys at the EPA aren't coordinating with the guys at the NSA or the FBI or the CIA, right? These are all just, it's a archipelago of different...
Don't love how he says that. Is that how you say it?
I say archipelago.
Yes, it's archipelago.
Power centers and fiefdoms, and the people, you know, it's public choice theory explains far more about this stuff than any sort of literary narrative about conspiracies in the deep state. And meanwhile, the swamp, you know, I mean, obviously DC isn't literally a swamp, although it was kind of built on one and does have that kind of climate big chunk of the year. But metaphorically, you know, to sort of wax Orwellian again.
So what he does there is says, these MAGA idiots talk about this deep state thing that doesn't exist. But what does exist are all these agencies that work against the executive sometimes to undermine them completely, and that's called the swamp. Okay, so he said the deep state doesn't exist. Then he describes this thing which perfectly defines the deep state.
Well, right. And
But it's not like, when MAGA hats say it. No. Not when you say it. It's
different from what they say.
Right.
And I guess his point is sort of like it's only the deep state if it's all coordinated and centrally run. But like no one says that.
No, but it's
a
so
total
hard
straw man. Like he's made up a person.
Yes.
And he's arguing against that person.
Yes. No, they're wrong because they said it's coordinated. It's like nobody says coordinated. We get when we say deep state. The point is undermining the executive. That's the point. And for him to both say, no, you're wrong because you're MAGA people, you don't get it. To also say, by the way, I want full credit for telling you about this cheap state, not deep state. I want full credit. It's very dangerous. It's like, it's just a matter of stick up because they hate Trump people.
Yeah. You don't understand that the better explanation is actually that there's individual people abusing their power with their own agendas. Like, I mean, I think there's probably a range of things that people believe when they talk about the deep state, but I think certainly one of the more common sense deep state positions is that there are a whole bunch of people in Washington, D.C. who are looking out for their own interests and power, and that it's not necessarily that there's like some cabal of secret, powerful people who are secretly running everything in a secret club.
Yeah, there's not deep state agenda 2025. There's different, I mean, obviously, the people in the administrative state in Washington, D.C., they had a united goal, which is to destroy Trump. Mm-hmm. They do it in their own way. Obviously, he was a threat to all of the establishment in Washington, D.C., so they all, in their own way, did what they could to destroy him and hamper him, etc. Right? I just love... No, we're not, guys. We've decided. Steve Hayes and Jonah have decided. No, we're not doing the deep state stuff. It's obviously swamp, right, guys? Right? Because because they're better than. We're not selling deep state T-shirts. We're selling swamp T-shirts. Even though swamp actually is more of a vast, weird metaphor,
right, than
deep state. Deep state, you kind of get what they mean. It's the people, front-facing people and agencies who are saying, "Guys." Huddle. You three, now that we're done with the marketing meeting, You three, stay behind for a second. Let's talk about what we're going to do. We're going to pretend to have a chat with Mike Flynn and really be investigating him. You know, we're going to freaking... These guys were in the car together. Brennan was in the car with Comey when they went and talked to Trump. We're going to go tell him that that there's this tape out there of him, and then we're going to leak to the press that we told him. That way the story is like, F you.
Right.
It's not deep state, technically. Fuck you. It doesn't matter what you call it.
Right.
It is what it is. And you know it is.
Well, and that's such a like leftist thing to do too, because it's a refusal to engage with the substance of what people are saying,
Yes.
and just like deciding what the word is that we're using for something, and that you get to define it however you want to in order to disagree. It like reminds me of when the left was all like defund the police, and then they were like, well, you know, by defund the police, we don't technically mean defund the police. We actually mean XYZ. When we say Black Lives Matter, what we mean really is when you say deep state, you mean this. Like, you don't get to define stuff however you want. You have to actually listen to what people are saying and decide whether or not it's true on the merits. But there's a variety of things that people mean when they say deep state. And certainly, I mean, like, I think there are some people who think that there's a centrally run cabal of people who are the people in power who are deciding everything that's going to happen. I mean, I do know some people who think that that's a thing.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people who talk about the deep state are talking about individual agencies with too much power, bureaucracies where people have political agendas. We're talking about the people that stymied Trump in his first term. Remember all the resist departments?
Of course.
When they were all saying, you know, the secret account of the whatever Bureau of Land Management and stuff. They were all doing their own little thing, occupied under, you know, siege by the evil Trump administration, trying to undo whatever Trump was doing. That's the problem. When people say the deep state, they're talking about unelected bureaucrats who have way too much power and have their own agendas to do things where they're not simply following the directives of an agency. We're not talking about, you know, just administrative workers who happen to work in these departments who are unideological and are just doing a day-to-day job, you know, filling out forms or paperwork or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
We're talking about people with their own ideologies who are imposing them in their work. You know, even going back to like the Obama days of the IRS targeting conservative groups, and sending other government agencies after them, secretly leaking information to other departments that were, you know, investigating people who are running conservative groups, things like that. So that's what people are talking about. They're saying our government's being run by ideologues who hate us. We didn't elect them. We can't get rid of them. And that's the big thing with Donald Trump. And I think that's the really, really powerful thing about the, you know, whatever you think Elon Musk thinks about H-1B visas. I mean, it's almost beside the point. I think it's an interesting conversation to be having in public. But I also think that Trump didn't put Elon in charge of H-1B visas. He put him in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency. And these are the types of things that I think we really need to take a look at. Do we need a federal Department of Education? Because it scares people when you say we're going to get rid of the Department of Education, because they go, what happens to all that money? Well, you can send that money back to the states without needing to have a full Department of Education whose payroll budget alone is like $2 billion a year. So like, why are we paying all these people who don't even have to show up at the office now because everybody's remote in DC, and to do a bunch of paperwork in Washington DC and make ideological decisions about stuff?
Well,
you know, draft rules for colleges, and, you know, trans people in women's sports and all these things. Why are we paying a bunch of people in these agencies who hate conservatives and hate all these values?
Well, exactly. And that's another thing. And you could also file that under deep state as well.
Of course.
Because all of this stuff, there's activism that's sown throughout and is regulated into communities. And all the trans stuff, all the drag queens, porn for kids stuff, all of that stuff is never, it's about, they're going to tell you, and they've made this decision to tell you, they're going to tell you it's about diversity and seeing representation. They need representation. What if there's another? I was a 17-year-old freak who didn't know what gender I was, who had a split lizard tongue, and I didn't have somebody to look up to. Now they can see themselves. So it's no. That's how the cover that they put the stuff in there. But yes, that's all done in it's all repackaged as not that. No, we didn't mean to have. No, this is not about the uncle raping the daughter. No, I know the book has that. No, this is about representation. This is about if somebody can feel like they're being centered, and it goes all over the place too. You could even say the rollout of Obamacare of healthcare.gov was a conspiracy, a different kind of conspiracy. It was a conspiracy of incompetence doing CYA.
Yeah, and people covering up that the thing didn't work.
Yes, nobody. And there was
the back end. You wanted a back end too. I see. Do you remember that when they were like back end versus front end? Well, we made a front end.
Yes.
We didn't know. Oh, you
wanted
the
to do
back
stuff. Pull from a database.
You wanted people to actually be able to sign up on it. You just didn't want it to look like a nice website.
Wait a minute, it's done. Healthcare.gov, it's done. And remember, like it became quickly like the way that the left, even back then, castigates you for calling them out on their incompetence was the original healthcare.gov homepage featured this woman, and they said she's being bullied now. You see, with all the criticism, people are seeing her in the street and now are bullying her because it's like. Oh, I see. You're at no point are we're going to stop at the you're incompetent and you've taken our money and you're a hack. You're going right to people are bullying the girl in the front. Oh, so we're the bad guys. Yeah. We broke healthcare.gov. It's like just amazing. But how about this, Alice? How about the biggest deep state thing happening right now that's been happening for 4 years was the mental condition of the president of the United States and who's running the country.
Yeah.
That is happening right now. And you're going to tell me that they're not coordinated? Every Democratic member of Congress, every Democratic senator, every Democratic staffer, every Democratic person in the White House, everybody knew.
Oh, certainly the entire cabinet. Who has the power to do something about it, actually?
Everybody knew his mind was gone. And they all decided, we're not going to say. The moment nobody in the room is saying something, when they know something's up, they are in a conspiracy.
Right, and I think that's what's funny about the Jonah thing, because he's like, what people don't realize is that, like, individual people's incentives and decisions can add up to looking a lot like a conspiracy. Of course, everybody knows that. I mean, I think everybody knows that. Most people know that a lot of incompetence and conspiracies and cover-ups, I don't necessarily think all these people had to get together and say, what are we going to do about the fact that President Biden is not competent to be the president anymore? They just all like winked at each other and knew that this was happening, right?
Yep.
And so you don't necessarily need a conspiracy to have a conspiracy, is I guess what I'm saying. And Jonah's whole thing is like a distinction without a difference.
Yep.
It has the same net result as having a deep state. And I think a lot of people mean that when they talk about a deep state. But he's just determined to have the worst possible reading of everybody who says deep state and the least charitable possible interpretation of what they could possibly mean by that, because they're a MAGA person, so they must be an idiot.
Well,
so
right.
Start from there.
I think, and I understand some of that, because the MAGA thing, the populist movement, is a movement of emotion. And I think a lot of intellectuals say, like, no, this is our space. We've done all the intellectual legwork to know how this is run, to know why we feel that we come into our own ideologies, and to know the root, to know the origin story of all of these political planks, etc. And they're like, since when are like who let the jocks suddenly take over the science lab? No, these are our thing here. I feel like they feel like that interlopers are on their spaces, by the way, where they were once considered kings.
But everything's so decentralized now. Some hack with a Twitter account can get just as much attention as
can be in the cabinet house,
right?
And also, you look at another thing too, is all the highly paid political consulting class. Everything that they paid, $1 billion Kamala paid. And Trump had Scott Pressler, this weird 7-foot-tall dude who thinks he's a chick, door knocking.
I don't think he thinks he's a chick. He's just gay.
Oh, is he gay? Okay. I don't know, who's like probably learned what door knocking was 2 years ago
Right.
and got the ground movement out.
Got
and,
into registering people to vote and just does that now.
Right. And it's absolutely amazing. And, there are people that we had at the Herald in 2015, in 2016, political consultants, Republicans, who are now out of the business. A couple of great guys who are just out of the business.
Yeah.
They were just like, the world changed. And it's hard to be an expert anymore. But before we leave the deep state stuff, I want to play this. Kristen Welker today asked Schumer about the Biden conspiracy. And, I mean, she's not good at this. A real reporter would have held his head right in the pile of bleep and said, "You're not going anywhere." But at least she said it.
I want to play you a little bit of something you said last year. Take a look.
I talk to President Biden, regularly, sometimes several times in a week, or usually several times in a week. His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
Leader Schumer, what do you say to Americans who feel as though you and other top...
By the way, what pussy way to put it. What do you say to Americans who feel that you may be misdiagnosed?
I don't think that about you.
Right, exactly.
Some people, it's like her version of the people are saying.
Yes.
Democrats misled them about President Biden's mental acuity.
No. Look, we didn't, and let's look at President Biden. He's had an amazing record. The legislation we passed, one of the most significant groups of legislation since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, putting in 235 judges, a record, and he's a patriot. He's a great guy. And when he stepped down, he did it on his own.
Is any of those things mental acuity, by the way?
No. He's a patriot, Alice. Just his.
He's a nice person.
He's a great guy, he said.
He thought it was better not only for the Democratic Party, for America. We should all salute him.
Do you feel, as we have this conversation today, that President Biden could serve another 4 years had he stayed in the race and potentially won?
Well, I'm not going to speculate. As I said, I think his record is a stellar one, and he'll go down in history as a really outstanding president.
I want to play...
He's going to go down in history as the worst president of all time and worst person.
And you know what's funny? Mm-hmm. They also today said so the other thing that some of the news people are worried about is that tomorrow is January 6th, which I know makes you very upset every year. So tomorrow is January 6th.
Are we having a vigil?
Yes, which is bigger than 9/11. It was much bigger than Pearl Harbor, obviously. And the question was and Donald Trump said he's going to pardon these people. The great thing is because of this great guy, he's a great guy, Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. Trump is free and clear to pardon whoever the F he wants.
Yeah.
Because Biden pardoning and commuting sentences for rapists.
For the worst criminals in the country.
It's amazing. He pardoned or commuted everybody but 3. It's amazing. This great guy, this great president, has now set precedent in a way that is never going back. You have the wrong guy to inherit the Oval Office if you think he's going to use good grace and be the better man when it comes to this stuff now. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do this, do it before President Romney. Because Trump is going to run with this thing and have a lot of fun with it.
Romney's going to be like, this is the return to norms. And actually do it. Right. Not just say he's going to do it like
the New York
Biden.
Times will kill him for it anyway. Right. So, yeah. That's where we are. It's amazing. Here's the other thing he said. This is the new messaging for the Democrats. This is where they are now. They need to win working class America back. So, and Schumer, you could tell that's what he was there to do, to set the table. He's using all sorts of working class words again.
So we did a lot of good things, but all too often, Kristen, we talked about the mechanics of the legislation and the details of the legislation, and we really didn't show the kind of empathy and concern to average, or show enough of it to average working families who didn't realize how much we had done and how much we care for them.
They still think they have a messaging problem and not a policy problem.
Well, but no, that's also
and a competence problem and a goodness problem and everything
and
else.
How many $1 million of consulting came up with this messaging? That the Democrats didn't realize how good we had delivered for them. They can't grasp.
These idiots didn't know.
Yeah.
It's back to the same thing that
Yes.
I always grew up with, which was that like working class people vote Republican because they're voting against their own self-interest.
Yes.
They're voting against their own interest. They don't know. You know what? We didn't explain enough that the economy was actually great.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you guys have been trying to explain that the economy is great for 4 years. The problem is that you made the economy suck.
Right. It's always like
it's actually the thing that you did. Did you?
No,
like,
yeah.
But that's great. I mean,
yes.
like, I hope in 2026 they continue to run on how great the Biden term was for everybody,
Yes.
because
Democrats
that would be really great messaging
Yes.
for them.
Democrats are telling Democratic voters who moved to Trump, it's you, it's not us. Just so you know. We did everything right.
You know what? It's really our fault. We didn't explain enough.
We should have
how great we are.
Exactly. We should have bought more ads on NASCAR. We should have talked dumb police more. That way we
should have dumbed it down. We talk too much Washington, D.C.'s.
Which you can't grasp. I mean, there's something to it.
You didn't understand when we were talking about passing the bill that made your life worse, that this was a very sophisticated conversation. What we should have done is dumbed it down for you.
Correct.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're on Patreon, stay there because we do have a few more things we want to get to. I want to talk about taking your kids to the car dealership, which is a topic we're going to address in a couple of years, actually, for our daughter. Well, if we end up buying our daughter a car, but I think it's a.
Did she gets a car before I get a car? By the way, let me tell you something. If you live anywhere in the upper Atlantic Ocean part of the Merrimack Valley, stay the F off the roads the moment Charlie Shattuck is driving a will telling you. She admitted herself.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we will talk about that on the other side for the Patreon show.
C'est la vie.